Good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome on in to your FreightWaves Now Community Spotlight on this Monday. I'm Kaylee Nix, and it's time to check in with Grace Sharkey, one of our co-hosts of the Stockout. That's our retail and CPG-focused community. Grace, great to have you this morning. I got to ask, have you had your Starbucks yet?
I haven't had my Starbucks yet. I will say I do actually have a Panera Bread order coming as we speak. That's actually a part of the SIP Club, so that's my go-to right now. That's actually what we're going to be diving into a little bit today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to start by going back in time a week to talk about last week's episode of the Stockout with a very special guest, which was highly entertaining and maybe a little bit controversial. We got some good social media comments about it up on YouTube. Go ahead and talk to us about yourself and Mike Baudendistel and who you guys chatted with last week.
Yeah, so we had a wonderful chat with Britton Ladd, who is a global supply chain strategist out there who talks with large to small companies about how they can improve their supply chains. And he's also one that's well known on LinkedIn and some social media sites to deliver some hot freight opinions. And boy, do we love hot freight opinions here. And I would really push everyone to go check it out, because not only do we dive into just concerns that he's seen from a number of shippers across the globe, we get into China versus India, what the strategies are behind that. We get into Amazon and whether or not it's a monopoly and what could consider it as a monopoly as well. And one of the last topics we get into, speaking of Starbucks, is Starbucks and their strategy to turn things around. Their earnings came back in and they were down once again. And it was actually followed by a post from their leadership, literally just like asking the community, like, what can we do to turn this around? And he offers some really interesting and creative ways to solve those problems too, and what he's talked to actually Starbucks about in the past as well. So definitely go check out that episode. It's full of really interesting points of view from an individual who's in these rooms talking to these big brands that we cover on the Stockout.
And I think that last week's episode kind of sparks our broader topic of conversation all about these kind of fast casual food brands. And of course, they are part of that CPG community, especially the ones who do a lot of the prepackaged items that come and then get prepared there in-house for them, and kind of the way that they're sitting in the current consumer ecosystem. And it's really interesting to watch because we all know that inflation is running rampant. A lot of these places like Panera, like Starbucks, have jacked up their prices and have seen that really to increase profits, but without really increasing the quality of their product, definitely not increasing the pay of their workers either. And Panera is no stranger to that. And they're also no stranger to criticism. They just went through a complete menu overhaul. They axed some really popular items, and they're not exactly being received super well. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so definitely over, I'd say the last year, they've had some controversies. One, you lightly brought this up, the employees in particular. It came out that there was some interesting connections to some overtime laws in California for special bakeries that Panera had put itself under. That, I believe, is being turned around by the company. You're 100% right. They went through in April a complete overhaul of their products. Which, as someone who's tested a few of them, they are great. But the thing is, whenever you see an overhaul like that, even though there are ways that you could theoretically say prices went down, the average price of most things did go up a small percent too. And just enough to fool you, but maybe not to see it right away as you order. But they are focused on that turnaround and really trying to find a better way to create, I think, a community now with their customers, something that they've applied. Actually, I started this a couple of years ago just with coffee, a coffee club. I believe it was like $8 or $9 a month, and you could get unlimited coffee throughout the day. They've expanded that to the SIP Club, which is actually something that I'm a part of now, which now opens up to, I'd say, probably about 80% of their drink offerings. Once you get into like the mixed lattes and stuff like that, that's in smoothies, it doesn't cover that. But it is an interesting value. And I will say I've probably spent more at Panera. I spent less on energy drinks, which we'll get into that point in a second. But I have probably spent more on Panera food being a part of that community too. So it is an interesting play that they're doing, and they're working towards, I think, creating kind of that Starbucks community aspect, right? Where you have a wallet in the app, you're constantly putting more money into that. Good old grow math. If the money's in the Starbucks app, right, then it's technically already paid for. So going after that, I think that feeling of community and that dedication to kind of build up their sales in that route, I believe is starting to pay off. And there actually were talks last year about going IPO. So maybe there is a chance that we will be able to kind of see more of that private data and information over the next couple of years on that growth.
The other interesting thing that the word community brings up in places like this is that places like Panera and Starbucks were originally created to be part of that physical community too, right? To be kind of that coffee shop vibe, a meeting place. And since COVID and the fact that they have gone mostly either delivery or pickup, that's kind of gone out the wayside. Do we think that maybe establishing community like a physical footprint, like that's one of those things that Starbucks offers, right? If you're in store and you're drinking their coffee and it's just plain black coffee, you can go up and get unlimited refills. Is bringing back physical community a part of this strategy as well to maybe turn around some of that kind of fast casual decline that we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, the Sim Club is a perfect example of it. One of the reasons I did join it is because on Saturdays and Sundays, I like to go there, get breakfast, and I'll actually work for a couple of hours inside Panera, which I think in terms of design and comfortability, they've always done a really good job of doing that inside their stores. But I can now get refills like every 2 hours. I usually get the large, which is a huge amount anyway. So to go through that is pretty simple. They offer free water as well. So that aspect is there. One other thing too that I'll say, and I've actually experienced as well, is at the end of the day, Panera Bread does actually give back all of their leftover breads to local shelters or food banks as well. When I was actually at Michigan State, our food bank at MSU got their leftover bread. So I was seeing some high quality bread in college, but it is I think adding that aspect, right, kind of actually helping the community too, is something that Panera has helped with in the past and has continued to do. I think now it's how do we get people into the stores more often, and when they come in the stores, there's something new and vibrant that they can try that they haven't had before.
It's interesting. Maybe we'll see more people getting out of the house and back into those physical locations and gathering a little bit more in person. Grace, talk to us a little bit about what's coming up for the Stockout, this episode that will air today.
So we're going to dive into one Prime Day, which is right around the corner. So we'll get into that a little bit. We're also going to talk about a little bit Amazon focus, to be honest with you, their new supplement testing as well. We've got a number of interesting articles that FreightWaves has covered. We're going to get to some data too to see exactly what volume's looking like coming or moving around the United States as well. We'll probably touch actually on the Panera taking away their charged lemonades and what that means for the company too. So we've got a lot of different areas that we're going to touch on later today too. And when you're done with that episode, make sure you go check out last week's as well with Brian.
Now, speaking of gathering, we're less than a month away from all getting together in Atlanta for the Future of Supply Chain. We still do have a discount code running for you guys who are a part of Grace Sharkey's community. Where can people go to find that, Grace?
Well, easy peasy. Head to freightwaves.com/the Stockout with a dash in between the and Stockout. Or if you click on newsletters at the top of the page, we're literally right there at the very middle top. It's impossible to not see us. Join our community, and our first newsletter you'll get later in the week. It'll come with that discount code. And then you can, of course, come see us. We'll be doing an episode live at the event. So that's a first timer for us too. So very excited to be there, and go check out the full agenda. We've got a lot of companies, a lot of interesting speakers that will be joining us too.
The Stockout at Future of Supply Chain, sponsored, not sponsored by Panera and Charged Lemonade. Grace, thanks for joining us this morning. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Kaylee.